Morning, my people. Morning, my people. Father Paul here again. Yeah, interesting times. Interesting times. Well, let me ask those of you to like, share, and subscribe. The, you know, this little thing that I'm doing, and I appreciate it. Appreciate those who listen and those who comment. It's uh, it's very interesting. Very interesting sometimes to see, what is it that moves the people. But nevertheless, I appreciate the interaction. So here we are, another week, and all things being equal, Prime Minister should be sworn in on Tuesday, and hope for that there be nothing, no consequential events before that happens. You know, after the general election and the night when Mark Golding conceded, it came as a kind of surprise to me because of the combative nature that the PNP had been taking. The way in which he conceded came across as a little, I don't know, kind of took me back to Animal Farm. You know, how after the vote, for the animals were choosing a leader, and this was after, I think it was Major, the old um, boar, had died. They wanted a new leader. And for whatever reason, in the book Animal Farm, the pigs always seem to be the ones who rise to leadership. And so it was between Snowball and Napoleon. And they had the vote and they chose Snowball. And Napoleon didn't fuss with it. He simply just left and took the six, I think it was 6 or 8 puppies with him. And for those who know the story, he came back, you know, with a vengeance, chase out Snowball. I do hope that the Prime Minister is one who follows history keenly. I mean, from the things he says, it appears that he pays attention to the history. And in paying attention to history, you have to know who your longtime enemies are. You can't lay yourself careless. And I'm hoping that the Prime Minister does not lay himself careless in this third term. And that if ever he was ever going to dot I's and cross T's, now is the time to do so. Because in what might have been exactly 7 days after the election, here comes the PNP to their leader, Mark Golding, their General Secretary, Dayton Campbell, and Anthony Hilton, who I sometimes don't know what to think of this man. Here they come, making all kinds of, or casting rather, aspersions, not outrightly saying anything, not coming with any evidence, but trying to cast some kind of doubt. But I think the most ridiculous thing, but most instructive, was that the seat that they want to challenge, not the ones that win by 100 and something or whatever. Mm-mm. They want to look into Andrew Horner's seat. The seat that Andrew Horner's win by 2,210 votes, if my memory serves me correct. This is the seat that they want to look into. And what that tells me is that they're not done with Andrew Holness. As a matter of fact, they seem to be even more determined to try to bring him down. I mean, which white fowl did Andrew Holness eat for them? I also found it interesting that Peter Bunting, Damien Crawford, and Donna Scott Matley were not at the press conference that they kept. But that's where Donna Scott Matley, because she couldn't carry cross, but she was not MP. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, she's the lady pretty much sold her soul, went back on everything that she said prior to Mark Golding becoming party leader. I mean, this lady, I don't know. I know that those who mentored her must be turning in their graves. This is a person that, I mean, if anybody know the history, one just cannot imagine what this lady has become. But anyway, it looks like them must cast her aside because she wasn't the person giving no legal counsel. And where was Peter Bunting? Because you see, when you don't see Peter Bunting, one must be concerned. Because he typically doesn't have anything good to say. And if he's not there being himself, then he's probably somewhere scheming. So here it is, they have basically made it known even before they're even sworn in that it sound like they plan to use the words of Miranda Wellington. If a war is war. Huh? And it's like them throw down the hatchet and make it known, say, yo, I come for you, brother. Anyway, we continue to watch all these things going on. We see Cafe. We don't know if it's a gaff on their part, making statements which are unclear. We see the Patriots come out and say, I'm basically defending them leader. We see saw an article said that all the opposition MPs have signed a letter indicating their support for Golding. And of course, if you reason it out without the party lens, you can see some logic in them wanting to keep him. There are those who are making the comparison between Mark Golding and Peter Phillips and Portia Simpson Miller, how they behaved when they lost the elections. But Mark Golding's situation is a bit different because both Peter Phillips and Portia Simpson Miller went into each election with a higher number of seats, and at the end of the election had a lower number. Portia Simpson Miller went in with 40-something seats. And when the election was over in 2016, they had 31. When Peter Phillips went in, he went in with, I believe it was around 30. 29, I think 29, because there might have been 2 by-elections before. And he came out with 14. Mark Golding, on the other hand, went in with 14 and came out with 28. So one could say that he brought in 14 more seats, right? You can't change those facts. The seat count increased by 14 because he didn't pull off the win. That is no reason for them to change the leader. And if you look at the situation in the party, changing the leader to whom? Because there is still a one PNP leaning persons in the party, and there is also the Rice camp. There would end up being some kind of war inside the party, which of course it can still happen because you can't change those facts. The seat count increased by 14 because he didn't pull off the win. That is no reason for them to change the leader. And if you look at the situation in the party, changing the leader to whom? Because there is still a one PNP leaning persons in the party, and there is also the Rice camp. There would end up being some kind of war inside the party, which of course it can still happen because we know that the intention of Peter Bunting was to be party president. So has he given up those aspirations? And now that he's an MP, he can actually challenge for the seat. The problem, though, is that he doesn't have the support because everybody now knows, thanks to the resistance, now know what it is that he did, he and Mark Golding. So technically he could still get it because since everybody now know, these guys act with the impunity. They don't really care what people think. They don't live their life going through what people think about them. They're gonna be themselves. So he could decide that he still wants it. The question is Mark Golding going to be fine with being second fiddle again to Peter Bunting? That, I think, is the situation. We know that Paul Well still can be party leader. Still have him, I think he's still having visa issues. And what of Damien Crawford? There is a portion of people who are pushing for Damien. I'm not quite sure why though. Because Damien has articulated some things during the campaign which are so discombobulated, so not clearly thought out. At all time, it seems like he's speaking in a different language, talking above the heads of the people. But there are some people who favor him for party leader, and the PNP is operating more like a you know personality cult. This is what they look for. They seem to look for. Uh, it's all about who they like, not necessarily who's good for the job. Lisa Hanna having not contested her seat and therefore no longer being an MP is completely out of the runnings if she were to remain in the party. Plus, the Rise camp and we had sabotaged her, and we know this by way of Lawrence Rowe. So it's in some interesting times ahead as to what exactly is going to happen within the PNP. There was a curious comment from JFJ's Michaela Jackson. Curious comment about their having this press conference and the things they were saying, and her expressing that this is there just needs to be some kind of, one should be concerned as to why it is that they would do that, and all against the backdrop that they had conceded to the election. So it's almost like you concede, but now you want to challenge. But your target is not the people who lost by a few, by in numbers that you could a magisterial recount would be the way to go for those. No, you're painting a bullseye on the prime minister's seat, which is clearly pointing out that you have, and boy, I might tell you, what a belly them people are caring for the prime minister. I mean, it just don't make any sense. Had the entire group been one of, I would say that classist clique, I could understand. But Dayton Campbell not come from anywhere necessarily better than the prime minister, or maybe he feels he does. But for whatever reason, they are all up in arms, and they want the prime minister's head. Well, Dr. Honest, I would say, be vigilant and don't put anything past these people. These people want power, and we don't know what kind of diabolical deeds they're willing to perform to get that power. They seem to feel as if though if they can take your head, then they can pretty much get away with anything. That seems to be the thinking. And so they're still coming after you. I mean, I understand that there is a, yes, Most of them have gotten their seat in the parliament, but it must be quite a bittersweet because the fact that they're sitting in the parliament but not in the position of being the ruling party, just being there to, you know, oppose, was not what they intended. And with all the big speech that they had given and the proclamations and who was going to make who wear short pants and who was going to be the leader, who's going to be the next prime minister, etc. You know, it must be quite painful, to be find yourself in the parliament but in the opposition benches. But we'll wait and see. Looking forward to the cabinet and to see if there are any major changes, which I doubt there should be because none of the ministers had lost their seat. You know, I think there may have been one state minister, and that was Dr. Dunn, who seemed to have lost his seat. But other than that, everything else is intact. And we continue to push forward, with this argument that, listen, this time around, we'll take care of them 35 seats. Yeah? And if we see two that we can pick off extra, forgive us, 37. Yeah, we'll get them a little something extra too. And by the way, tell you, America has become a very strange place where people can lose their job in the media just by commenting on an issue. Why, I tell you, how the world turns, they say. How the world turns. And Jamaicans, I would say, take sleep on that here. Because, you see, there are some people who look like they might like to behave with the same kind of impunity that is happening here. Take sleep, mark that. Yeah. Until we talk again. Keep that fire burning. Keep that fire burning, because the war not done. Stock up on the rations. Taking up on the tools. And we're going to go match them toe to toe. It look like for the next 5 years. But we're out now. And we're doing things. Big up the shower army and the resistance. Yeah. I've been saying, we need for all our summit. At least amongst those who will take part in the battle. See if we can see a way forward. Because this thing looked serious. And there's no time to rest. And for those of us who are out here creating content, the PNP seems to be that gift that just keeps giving. And once they continue to give, it only enhances our fortunes, because we'll have material to make productions of. Fall up out here.